There are moments in life when your mind becomes a battlefield and your pain becomes a language that only your soul can understand. In those seasons, it may feel like everything is working against you, but what if the very things you're trying to escape are the tools shaping the person you were always meant to become? There is a version of you that can only be birthed through pressure, a strength that only comes through breaking, a wisdom that only comes through wrestling with what you don't understand. This message is for the one who feels overlooked, misunderstood, or worn out by the weight of silent struggles. It's a reminder that God never wastes a wound, never ignores a tear, and never overlooks the storms that rage inside your mind. Your brain, your thoughts, your confusion, your trauma, and your pain are not evidence of your failure. They are evidence that something powerful is being formed within you. Pain has a way of distorting your vision, making it hard to believe that anything good could come from what you're experiencing. It convinces you that you are stuck, that what you are going through is a setback rather than a setup. But pain, in its rawest form, is not sent to break you. It's sent to reveal you. When everything is going well, it's easy to speak about trust, faith, purpose, and destiny, but it's only when the ground under you starts shaking that the foundations of what you believe are truly tested. In that testing is where the preparation begins, because pain has a way of exposing what comfort hides. Comfort will let you sit in average, but pain will push you toward transformation. Comfort allows complacency, but pain introduces a hunger for change. You begin to see that what once satisfied you no longer fills the emptiness in your soul. The same routine no longer soothes your inner restlessness. Pain shows up not to shame you, but to wake you up to the areas of your life that have been surviving rather than truly living. There is something about going through difficulty that activates a deeper level of awareness. You start to discern the difference between what is urgent and what is important. You begin to recognize patterns, not just in your life, but in your thinking. Pain slows you down long enough to notice the things you've been ignoring. It brings to the surface the broken narratives you've whispered to yourself for years. You realize that the real battle is not always around you, but within you. Pain sharpens your spirit and invites you to ask deeper questions about your purpose. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You start asking, what is this awakening in me? That shift marks the beginning of preparation, because preparation is not just about what you're going through on the outside. It's about what is being developed on the inside. Pain is the training ground where faith muscles are built, where resilience is shaped, where clarity is born. People often pray for strength, not realizing that strength is forged in struggle. They pray for wisdom, not understanding that wisdom is often wrapped in experiences that require you to trust beyond what you see. They ask for purpose, unaware that purpose is revealed most clearly in seasons where you feel lost. Pain becomes the vehicle God uses to escort you out of comfort and into calling. In those moments, you begin to understand that preparation is not glamorous. It doesn't always look like open doors and applause. More often, it looks like wrestling with uncertainty, waking up with questions, and still choosing to believe there is more ahead of you than behind you. Preparation looks like carrying the weight of silent battles while still showing up for life. It looks like tears that nobody sees and prayers that don't have the right words, but still flow from the depths of your soul. As you walk through pain, your capacity increases. What used to break you no longer has the same power. What used to intimidate you now becomes an opportunity for growth. That's the hidden blessing inside pain. It stretches your capacity to handle more without collapsing. It teaches you how to breathe through the pressure, how to stand even when shaking, how to hope even when everything around you suggests there is no reason to. Preparation is not about perfection. It's about endurance. It's about surviving what was meant to destroy you and coming out not just alive, but wiser, more focused, and more connected to your purpose. Pain becomes the classroom where you learn how to carry what you prayed for. It refines your character, burns away false identities, and strips you down to your most authentic self. What you learn in those moments cannot be taught in comfort. It can only be discovered when you are brought to the edge of your limits and still find the strength to keep going. Your thoughts have the power to build your faith or break it long before your surroundings ever shift. Most people believe that if their situation changed, their faith would rise, but in reality, faith is not built in reaction to the environment. It is formed in the quiet places of the mind where nobody else can see. Your surroundings may look like chaos, but if your mind is anchored in belief, that belief starts to reshape how you experience the chaos. Two people can walk through the same storm, yet respond in completely different ways, not because one had an easier path, but because one decided to think differently about what the storm meant. When your thoughts align with fear, everything you see will confirm that fear. When your thoughts lean into faith, even pain starts to look like preparation. You begin to understand that the mind is the first battlefield where faith is either starved or strengthened. Every day, thoughts are forming narratives inside you. These narratives become the lens through which you interpret everything. You could be surrounded by opportunity, but if your thoughts are rooted in defeat, you will talk yourself out of what God has already made available. That is how powerful the mind is. It can block blessings or birth breakthroughs. The environment around you might say it's over, but if your mind says there's still more, that inner agreement with hope becomes stronger than what your eyes see. The enemy doesn't always attack your surroundings first. He attacks your thoughts because he knows if he can hijack your mind, your faith will surrender without a fight. This is why someone can have all the potential in the world and still live like they are powerless, because their thoughts have convinced them that nothing they do will matter. When you believe those silent lies long enough, your mind begins to make agreements your spirit never signed up for. Faith doesn't begin when you see change. It begins when you decide to think differently, even when nothing has changed. That shift in thought is what creates room for faith to grow. When your thoughts say, maybe this pain is not the ending but the beginning of something new, faith rises. When your thoughts whisper, there is still purpose in me even if I feel broken, faith takes a breath. When your thoughts declare, I may not understand this season, but I still believe something good can come out of it, faith stands up inside of you. Your surroundings don't have to improve for your thoughts to align with truth. You don't need a new environment to activate faith. You need a renewed mind. The moment your mind agrees with God's plan more than it agrees with your fear, faith starts guiding your steps instead of your feelings. And when faith leads, your surroundings eventually follow. Transformation doesn't begin when people notice the change. It begins long before that, quietly, invisibly, in the unseen places of the mind where new decisions are born. Before your life shifts, your thinking has to shift. Before new habits form, new beliefs have to take root. You can speak change, desire change, even pray for change, but until your mind agrees with the change, your life will keep repeating old patterns. The mind is where transformation is conceived, and if it is never conceived there, it cannot be born in your reality. Many people want a new season, but still carry the mindset of their old one. They ask for breakthrough, but still think like someone who's bound. They dream of freedom, but still make mental agreements with limitation. The mind becomes the gatekeeper of transformation, deciding what gets access to your life. If your mind won't permit it, your life won't manifest it. True transformation is not about forcing your environment to shift. It's about allowing your mind to embrace a new identity, because identity shapes behavior and behavior shapes outcomes. You don't live according to what you want. You live according to what you believe about yourself. If your mind still sees you as unworthy, even when opportunities come, you will sabotage them. If your mind still carries shame, even when love shows up, you will push it away. That's why transformation has to start in the mind. When your thinking begins to align with truth, your life begins to align with purpose. When your inner conversation changes from, I don't deserve better, to, I was created for more, doors begin to open not just around you, but within you. That inner opening is what allows growth to flow into every part of your life. Without that mental shift, even blessings feel heavy because your mind hasn't been trained to carry them. Transformation in the mind looks like new thoughts interrupting old cycles. It looks like catching yourself when you start thinking from fear and choosing to think from faith instead. It looks like refusing to rehearse pain as your identity and instead letting it become your testimony. It looks like recognizing when your thoughts are leading you backward and deciding to speak life over your journey instead. The mind is where transformation is fought for daily. Your life may not reflect it yet, but if the shift has begun in your mind, transformation is already in motion. It may not be visible to others, but it is real. The moment your mind agrees to evolve, heaven starts rearranging things around you to match what is happening within you. That is why it's possible to still be in the same place physically, but feel different internally, because transformation always starts in the unseen before it becomes undeniable. Brokenness has a way of stripping away everything you thought made you strong, leaving you face to face with your own humanity. It exposes the parts of you that you were able to hide when life was comfortable. When things fall apart, you can no longer depend on your own strength, reputation, or ability to keep everything together. It is in that vulnerable place that something sacred happens. Your reliance shifts. You stop depending on your own understanding and start leaning on a strength that's higher than you. That surrender becomes the foundation of spiritual authority. Authority is not born from pretending to be strong. It is born from surviving what tried to break you and still choosing to believe. People who have never been broken may speak from knowledge, but people who have walked through fire speak from authority. And that authority carries weight because it has been tested. There is a different sound that comes from someone who has been through brokenness and found God in the middle of it. Their words carry conviction, not because they read it somewhere, but because they lived it. Brokenness removes the pride that makes you think you can do everything alone. It crushes the ego that tries to perform spirituality without true surrender. When pride is removed, what remains is authenticity, and authenticity is where spiritual authority grows. God doesn't build authority in the spotlight. He builds it in the shadows where no one sees you're wrestling. It's in the nights where tears become your only prayer that a new depth of power is formed in your spirit. You come out of that place not just quoting scriptures, but embodying them. Your faith is no longer theoretical. It has been forged through experience. People are drawn to real authority because real authority carries evidence. It carries the residue of battles fought in private. There is a weight to your presence when you've walked through brokenness and encountered God in the process. You don't have to force your voice to be heard. Authority speaks even in silence. Brokenness teaches you compassion. It softens your heart toward others who are hurting. Before, you might have spoken from assumption, but now you speak from empathy. And that shift changes everything. Spiritual authority is not loud, it's deep. It doesn't demand attention, it commands it by presence alone. When someone who has been broken begins to speak life, it feels different because it comes from a place of understanding. They don't just point to the promise, they also acknowledge the pain it takes to walk toward it. Brokenness also teaches you dependence. It reminds you that authority is not yours to take, it is yours to receive. You don't climb your way into spiritual power, you surrender your way into it. The more you try to appear unbroken, the more distant true authority becomes. But when you embrace your process and allow God to meet you in your weakness, something shifts. You no longer try to control everything, you learn to yield, and in that yielding, power flows. The very thing that was meant to disqualify you becomes the thing that qualifies you to carry a voice that sets others free. You begin to see that authority doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from overcoming it with grace still intact. Those who have walked through brokenness carry a different kind of courage. They know what it feels like to be shattered and still rise. They know what it feels like to have nothing left, but still whisper a yes. That yes becomes a mantle. It gives you the ability to speak to mountains because you've already spoken to your own valley. It gives you the strength to lift others because you know the weight of being down. Brokenness does not weaken your authority. It purifies it. It removes performance and leaves only truth. And truth spoken from a place of survival carries a power that cannot be manufactured. Waiting can feel like one of the hardest parts of the journey because delay often feels like rejection. When prayers go unanswered longer than expected, when doors you were sure would open remain closed, when opportunities pass you by, it can be easy to assume that maybe your purpose has been denied. But delay is not denial, it is development. There are things that time reveals that speed would only distort. Delay gives space for maturity, alignment, and preparation. You might feel ready based on your desire, but desire is not the same as preparation. Sometimes God delays the visible breakthrough because He is working on the invisible foundation. Purpose is too weighty to be placed on an unsteady soul, and delay becomes the tool God uses to strengthen what cannot be seen. When you are in a season of delay, it's tempting to measure your worth by your progress. You look around and see others moving forward, stepping into their calling, achieving what you are still praying for, and you begin to wonder if you were overlooked. But purpose is not on a competitive timeline. What belongs to you will not be given to someone else just because they arrived sooner. Delay teaches you to detach your identity from your pace. It strips away the pressure to perform and invites you to rest in alignment instead of hustle. You begin to understand that purpose is not something you chase, it is something you grow into. And growth takes time. Seeds do not sprout the moment they are planted. There is a hidden process beneath the surface, a quiet stretching and strengthening that no one sees. Delay is that underground work. It is the unseen process preparing you for the weight of what you ask for. In seasons of delay, you learn endurance. You learn how to hold on to a promise longer than your emotions feel like believing it. You learn how to keep showing up with excellence even when results are not immediate. That type of consistency builds character, and character sustains what excitement cannot. Many people can start with passion, but only those who have been refined in delay can sustain their purpose when reality hits. Purpose requires stability. It requires resilience that only waiting can produce. Delay forces you to lean into trust instead of timelines. It pushes you deeper into prayer, not for answers, but for alignment. You begin to shift from God, when will it happen, to God, make me ready when it does happen. That shift is where true maturity is born. There are blessings that come quick and fade fast, and then there are blessings that come after delay and carry longevity. Quick success can inflate pride, but delayed answers produce humility. They remind you that you are not in control of timing, only obedience. In delay, you learn how to obey without outcomes. You learn how to steward seasons that don't look like fulfillment yet. You learn how to find purpose in preparation. Delay is not the absence of movement. It is movement happening in a different realm. Just because you cannot see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Purpose is not denied simply because the door hasn't opened yet. Sometimes the hallway you're standing in is where God builds the strength you'll need. Once you walk through that door, when the answer finally comes, you will realize that the delay was never working against you. It was working for you. It shaped your spirit, purified your intentions, and positioned your heart. It taught you how to value what you once took for granted. Delayed answers birth a depth of gratitude that instant success could never produce. They create a testimony that carries authority because it was not handed to you easily. You endured for it. And endurance leaves a mark on your spirit that speaks louder than any platform ever could. Healing is not just a spiritual desire, it is a mental agreement. Many people pray for healing, speak healing, and declare breakthrough, yet still remain tied to the very patterns that keep them bound because their mind has not come into agreement with what their spirit knows is possible. Your spirit can believe in freedom, but if your mind keeps rehearsing pain, replaying rejection, and clinging to old identities, healing cannot fully manifest. The spirit may receive revelation, but the mind must embrace transformation for that revelation to produce change. There is a difference between wanting to be healed and being ready to think like a healed person. Healing begins the moment your mind stops identifying with what broke you and starts aligning with what can rebuild you. The mind is powerful enough to keep you in a season that God has already called you out of. You can be free spiritually, but still live mentally imprisoned by memories, fear, shame, or guilt. That is why real healing requires a shift in internal agreement. The spirit says, you are whole, but the mind says, you are still broken. The spirit says, you are loved, but the mind says, you are still abandoned. As long as those two voices remain in conflict, healing will feel distant. Agreement doesn't mean ignoring the pain. It means refusing to let the pain become your identity. It means acknowledging what happened without allowing it to dictate what is becoming. Healing requires you to speak a new language over your life, not just with your mouth, but with your thoughts. Because your life moves in the direction of what your mind consistently agrees with. When your mind and spirit come into alignment, healing becomes more than an emotional moment. It becomes a lifestyle. You start making decisions from a place of wholeness instead of brokenness. You choose relationships, opportunities, boundaries, and words from a healed mindset, You stop seeking validation from places that once fed your insecurity. Agreement between the mind and spirit empowers you to let go of cycles that once held you captive. You no longer just pray for peace. You begin to protect it. You no longer just ask for strength. You start thinking like someone who carries it. Healing is sustained not by emotion, but by agreement. Emotion can inspire change, but agreement establishes it. The moment your thoughts begin to echo what your spirit already knows, healing moves from something you hope for to something you begin to walk in daily.